Hello and welcome to Transform Tuesday, our weekly webcast on Alpha Transform. My name is Dave McCormick. I'm VP of Product Management here at Alpha Software. And today we were going to be going over some TPL stuff, and we are in a way going to be going over some TPL stuff, but we're going to be doing it by taking a look at a sample application. My plan last week was to show you something called the TPL tester. That's for testing out programs that you write in the TransForm programming language. And just before I was going to go on the air, I was speaking to one of the developers who said, "Whoa, don't show them that stuff. I have some brand new stuff coming out very shortly," which I hoped I was going to show to you today, but not, that's how development works. So instead, though, I have something that I think you're going to like, and that is a sample application that I built that is, well, in the middle of having TPL hooked up to it, but I think you'll be impressed with what the functionality can be. And I'll be able to show you that TransForm is for building actually real applications, not just simple data applications. So let's get started and I'll show you that. In the meantime, though, if you do have any questions about TransForm, this is also a Q&A session. So by all means, go ahead and type those questions into the questions box of the GoToWebinar control panel. So let me leave this PowerPoint, go into the next one. Hang on. All right, so here's a sample application that I put together at the end of last week, and it's called BoilerMinder. BoilerMinder is an application that, if you can imagine, is used for service technicians who service industrial boilers. And basically, it's there to help them keep track of the jobs that they're working on, keep track of the equipment that they're inspecting. It provides them checklists, it provides them information. There's a whole bunch of details to it. And I'm going to show you how basically all of its functionality starting right now. So to begin, when you open up the BoilerMinder application, it's going to ask you for the building that you want. And so there's an on-device database that contains all of the buildings that might have the boilers that you're interested in servicing. In other words, people with whom you have contracts. And along with the name of the building, there's some other information that's stored as well. So when I choose, for example, Mass General as the building name, it happens to know that Mass General is located in Boston, Mass. And because it's in Boston, Mass, and it knows that, a TPL command then goes and fires off an AJAX callback to a web API service from the National Weather Service, and it determines what the current temperature in Boston is, which it's displayed here. Now we're going to end up using that temperature a little bit later on, so I just wanted to show you that. Next, the technician verifies that they are in fact at the correct location, and they can do that just by tapping on the location control, which activates the phone's own GPS hardware, and coupled with Google Maps displays where they are right on the screen. So now that that's done, the next thing they're going to do is tap the inspections link. And inspections here I have plural because you can have multiple. In fact, TransForm supports data structures with unlimited complexity. Now, in this case, we've set up a parent-child relationship so that for each building, you can have multiple inspection records. You can have multiple boilers. And in fact, each boiler could have multiple inspection records. So you could think of it as a one-to-many relationship. And to begin the process, just to make it easy, you can either scan in an ID code that's on the boiler, or maybe the ID code is damaged or something like that, and you have to actually type in the boiler. You could do it that way too. But assuming that you scan it in, it opens up the device's own camera and uses it to scan the codes. Now, once the code has been found, as it's seen up here, is my boiler scan, and it returned this information from the QR code. It uses that information again on the onboard database to do a lookup, of the equipment. And it returns the make, the model, the serial number. It also includes some notes, such as the fact that it was serviced 14 months ago, and small amount of corrosion was found near the safety valve. And that's something that you're probably going to want to be on the lookout for this time that you do the inspection. So now that it's located use the barcode to locate the type of boiler we're working on, and in fact, the specific boiler along with its service history, we're presented now with a checklist for this boiler, and that's for this boiler in particular. If it was a different type of boiler, it may very well have different questions. For example, if it's a oil-based boiler, it may have questions about the oil tank versus natural gas, or it may have questions relating to the gas system. In this particular one, we have, it's asking you questions about the water gauge. That's that clear piece of glass that's in front of a boiler. It's on both industrial boilers, even on your home boiler if you have one. It lets you see that the water level is fine, and that water gauge can become dirty. There's clean piping and float chamber. I actually have no idea what that is. The stack temperature, which is how hot the gases are coming up out of the flue, as well as a picture of the safety valves and some information about that as well. So let's go ahead and imagine we are using this application, and we click the dirty button for water gauge. Now, because we've indicated that it's dirty, we get this special message that it pops up here. It says, unless the water gauge is completely opaque, cleaning it is not recommended unless the unit is going to be taken out of service for other reasons. Or to put it another way, the next time you pull this unit out of service for some reason, then would be a great time to clean the water gauge. And that's information that we're going to use later. For the next one, the stack temperature, which is the temperature of the gases going up the chimney, we use this mobile optimized keyboard to provide, big buttons to make it easy to not fat finger the keys. In other words, you can type them in accurately. And once they've been typed in, we actually do a data verification. We happen to know that for this particular furnace, that the normal reading is 500 degrees or below, but we've entered 625. So now it creates a brand new button for us asking us, hey, do you want to confirm that, or do you want to go ahead and recheck? Maybe you didn't read that the meter right, or the temperature gauge right. But assuming that you confirm it, a couple of things can happen. First of all, it can tell you, don't worry, this isn't dangerous, but it may indicate that the system is running inefficiently, so it does need to be looked into. But it can also know that for this particular type of operation, seeing if a system is running efficiently requires a certain skill level. And because the database knows who's logged in, it knows that this technician isn't actually trained to perform that kind of service. So it lets them know, look, according to your file, you're not currently certified to diagnose and correct this issue. But what it does do is it sends an email back to headquarters letting them know that this boiler will need to be looked at in the future because it seems to be running a little bit too hot. Okay, so for the next type of information that we're going to click, we're going to look at the safety valve, and we're going to take a picture of the safety valve. Now, with TransForm, you can take pictures at different resolutions. So typically we use medium resolution, and this is fine for most purposes. If you were taking a picture of a car which had a dent in it, a medium resolution picture is just fine. But if you want to take a really detailed photo, you might want to set it up to higher resolution, which is what we've done here when we've taken a picture of this corroded safety valve. In fact, the image is so clear you can actually read the part numbers and stuff right off of the valve, which is very handy. You can set this on a field-by-field basis in Alpha TransForm. You just do that in the commands functions area. You click on the field and you tell it what resolution you want to use. Now, on top of snapping a photo, we also offer image annotation, and you can choose the thickness and the color of the pen that you use to draw on the picture. So with this built-in annotation, the technician is circling on this safety valve an area that they think is potentially dangerous. Look, this is a safety valve, and it looks like it's got maybe not a huge amount of corrosion, but a moderate amount of corrosion on it. So that's going to be annotated right there, and it shows up here in the form. Now, the next question is sort of the judgment call from the point of view of the technician. Is that sort of a moderate or a mild amount of corrosion? And that looks like a moderate amount. So when they click on moderate, a whole bunch of things happen, and I'm going to show them to you right now. The first thing is you get this warning. The warning says that the part needs to be replaced soon. But then the second thing is it starts to use a little bit of intelligence here. For example, it knows from the furnace that you've selected what the replacement part is for the furnace, or sorry, for the boiler that you selected. In this case, it's a CSX22B. It also knows from an on-device database that the inventory level for the CSX22B means that it knows the inventory for that part, and it knows that it's on the truck. It's ready to go. It knows from yet another table what the estimated cost for the parts and the repairs are for replacing this type of safety valve. And then, if you remember back to our Ajax callback to get the temperature in Boston, it lets you know that, hey, the temperature is 65 degrees, meaning that if we take this boiler out of service, it probably won't have much of an impact on the comfort of the occupants. I mean, chances are they're either not running the heat, or if they wanted to run the heat, it's still not going to get, say, too cold in their apartment or their office space or something like that. On the other hand, if the temperature was, say, oh, I don't know, -4 degrees, it might say, hey, this is a repair you may want to delay until, for a week or so, until the temperature comes back to a regular amount. Since the part needs to be replaced soon, it doesn't need to be replaced immediately. Now, if you remember also earlier, we mentioned that the gauge, the water gauge, was dirty. And since it knows now that you're thinking about doing a repair that'll take the boiler offline, it makes a suggestion that you clean the water gauge at the same time. It also tells you what the price is for that and tells you what the new estimate will be for that. So now the technician has all of this stuff in hand. They know that the safety valve needs to be replaced. They know that they've got one in stock. They know there's probably something else they should do, clean the water gauge. They know how much it costs. And from the record that was tied to the building, we also know the name of the building manager who can approve the repair work being done. In this case, the person's name is Jan Jacobs. Not only that, we have contact information for Jan Jacobs and the ability to call them just by tapping on their link. So while they call up the link, another question appears, and it asks if the facility manager has approved the repair estimate. And you can either say yes or no to this. If the answer is no, you're pretty much done with the inspection at that point. You just sign it off and send it away. But if they do approve the repair, a couple more options appear. In fact, 3 more options appear. One is whether or not maintenance was successful, obviously. One is a timer to record how long it took to perform the repair, because this is going to be used later on when calculating the invoice. And the other thing that appears, in fact, the first thing that appears, are the instructions on how to perform the repair. Again, this is using on-device data that can be stored locally, so you don't need to have a cell phone signal in order to access it. So here's the maintenance instructions. The system knows that you're going to be doing replacing a safety valve and cleaning a water gauge. So it pulls up only assets that are relevant to that. Here is the video on how to replace a CSX series safety valve. And here's the PDF on how to clean the water gauge. When that's all done, so once you've read the instructions and you're about to start, you can just simply tap on the stopwatch and go and perform the repair. And when the repair is successful, you just click yes. And let me show you what happens when you click yes. When you click yes, it takes the calculation for the labor in terms of hours. Let's say it was 2.5 hours. And it multiplies it out by the hourly rate for this technician, also stored on the device, and it figures out the cost of the labor. It then reminds you of what the estimate was that you had told the building manager. You told them it was going to be $997.10 or thereabouts. But in actuality, because you did the job a little bit quicker, the actual parts and labor are just $959.60. And you can have an option right now to actually send an invoice out to the building manager to pay that, or whoever's responsible for accounts payable for this. So simply by clicking yes will cause a fully formed invoice to be generated and sent off. It's then up for the signature to up to the technician to sign the signature, and then they can submit it. And the nice thing that's about this, of course, is that when they're done, they don't have any paperwork left to do. I mean, everything regarding, what they did, how long it took, how much it costs, even the invoice and stuff, are all being handled automatically by the system. So they can move right on to the next job and not waste their time doing paperwork. So that is Boilerminder, and in future weeks, we are going to show you how this works and how to wire it up. In other words, how to get to the APIs, how to use the on-device databases, how to perform the calculations, how to trigger emails, and so on. So I hope you found this interesting. Do we have any questions or anything that anyone else would like to discuss? Go ahead and type them into the questions box of the GoToWebinar control panel. Well, I'm not seeing much, which leads me to believe that either I made sense or I really didn't make sense. But either way, thank you for joining me. If you do have questions about TransForm, please send an email to tfservice@alphasoftware.com, and we'll be happy to get in touch with you. I believe everyone here today is familiar with the Alpha Sandbox license, but if you aren't, it is a 3-person license, full license, good for a year, that would allow you to build out these applications and show them off. They're just not for deployment. That's the purpose behind a Sandbox license. Sandbox license is offered free of charge, and if you're interested, go ahead and send an email to tfservice@alphasoftware.com, and we can get you set up. So it looks like we do have a question. How long would it take to create this app? My feeling is that this could be built in probably 2 to 3 hours, I would say, to get everything working. Obviously, you'd want to know the API endpoint already for looking up the weather service thing, and you'd want to have some of those other, tables built ahead of time. We're sort of assuming that this is part of its infrastructure. But the actual creation of the app portion, including the TPL coding, I'm gonna guess is gonna be in the 2 to 3 hour range. And we'll see if I'm accurate in the upcoming weeks when we show you how to put it all together. So if that's it, I would like to thank everyone who attended. And again, hope to see you next Tuesday at our next TransForm Tuesday. Thanks again for showing up. Appreciate it. I'll talk to you all soon. Take care and goodbye.